We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you,
Good evening. Welcome to NUFC Matters, the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. And it's a good evening to Mitch, to George, to Steve, and a welcome back to Keith Patterson. How are you, lads?
Evening, everyone.
Great to see you, Keith. Good to see you, Keith.
Back by popular demand, Keith. Lots of people saying, "Can you get Keith on?" We just want to ask him a few questions, so you might find yourself a little bit busy tonight. In fact, what you might need to do after the show is go and do some yoga, like Eddie Howe does. For 10 minutes each day in the house. More of that later. But we're going to start with Bruno Guimarães, Mitch. And big talking point today. Finally, we've had confirmation that there is a £100 million clause. Benny in the chat saying, is the £100 million clause for Bruno a red herring? I mean, if we get an offer from City, PSG or Real Madrid on the 1st of July and the player wants to leave, will we not still have a transfer saga? Bill Burnett thinks that Craig Hope's stirring the pot again on the Bruno move. He just wishes journalists would deal with reporting facts and not just their own thoughts. PSR is rubbish and any top financial people could work around it, says Bill, very angry clearly about what's being said. And what's the lads' opinions on the vote? Well, we will come to that, Simon, but he also mentions, how did they see it affecting us this summer? And lastly, do they think Bruno goes or stays based on the clause ending in June? And Peter Dillon asked the same question. Where do you think the leak on the conditions of Bruno's release clause came from? His agent? Okay. Lot to digest on this one, but it's the big talking point, Mitch. It's a top story on Sky News at the moment.
Is it news to us? We've been talking about this for weeks.
Yeah.
We've been talking openly about this for weeks. It's not news to us. We've been saying about this. Okay, we can drop the is supposed to, is alleged to, we believe. So it's now common knowledge. Well, it was common knowledge to us weeks ago. We've known there was a release clause. For me, I think it's it gives us a degree of control, and it also gives an end, a point past which the speculation has to stop. There's a line drawn, put it to bed. Bruno's recently bought a brand new house in the region. Is that the action of somebody who says he wants to go? No. Yes, the timing took. It may just be one of them things, but I genuinely can't see Bruno agitating for a leave. Has it come from his agent? His agent's certainly a mischief maker, posting pictures of the Champs-Elysees when he's on holiday in Paris and stuff like that. And let's look physically at what the clause is. As we've said all along on here, we believe it was it's not about taking the money in staged payments. It's a one-off lump. Now, that, from a PSR perspective, no matter how we look at it, I don't think there's more than 2 clubs in Europe could do that in one go. And one of them is PSG. Is PSG a step up for Bruno? Do you think he sees that as a footballing step up? Well, he was in a Lyon team that took them to the league title when he was in France. And he was part of a team that thumped them 4-1 and went out unluckily to a dodgy penalty in the Champions League over 2 legs, home and away. So is it really a step up, footballing-wise, for Bruno? I don't think so, and I don't think he would think so either. So that leaves, okay, Real Madrid, Barcelona, if they lash out 100 million in one payment, that's their PSR for the season done. There's no more economic levers they can pull. I don't see where else any kind of bid like that's coming from, personally. And so for us, it's turn around to the so-called big boys and say, okay, give us the cash. And then we'll show you what we can do with that cash when we've screwed your PSR for the next season and possibly the season after that. So, to me, going forward, I see it as a poker move. We know what we're holding and we've just shoved everything all in and said to everybody else, right, let's see the whites of your eyes. And when everybody's going on at the minute with other things going on and people are chucking around some, Newcastle showing small club mentality and blah, blah, blah. This isn't small club mentality. This is putting pressure on everybody else. This is big club mentality. And if we were to have suddenly 100 million in one lump going to our PSR from that point of view, I think that's when we could be exceptionally clever with what we do with it. What I don't like about it is that if we was to go, it's not the greatest message to send to people at the club and anybody looking to want to come into the club. But I really do think it's a smart move that draws an absolute line to end any transfer saga and get it over with before the summer's even barely started. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because then that allows us to concentrate on us. And I think that's why other things are happening and unfolding at the minute. I know that's not necessarily, I don't think, from conversations we've had today, the consensus view of all of us here, but that's what it's all about, isn't it? I genuinely don't see it as a bad move at all. And frankly, if Bruno doesn't want to be here and he wants to go somewhere else, let's have the colour of the money for him. Thank you very much. And let's move on. Players come and go. They always have done in the past. Or we're going to focus on the minutiae, or we're going to look at how we grow. I would rather grow with Bruno, but there's other ways we can grow without them. And we are in control of this transfer narrative, whether people like it or not.
Yeah, George, I mean, it's been a breaking news story today, just because Eddie Howe confirmed it, really. Seems to me like a smart move by the club, though, just doing it, having it in that little gap. It's not something Mike Ashley would have thought of.
Well, no, except that Ashley would have been rubbing his hands for the 100 million now. It would have been in his bloody back pocket straight away. Neil's got it spot on as always. If somebody wants to go, goodbye. Newcastle's got to be bigger than one person and one player. And while I would be as sad as anybody else to see him go because he's such a talented player, I don't think people really realise how talented he is, to be honest. But if that's the situation, but again, Neil covers it. Does a player that's itching to go or even thinking about going sounds like he spent about £1 million on a house, and plus 5, is it?
4 million.
4. Well, do you do that if you're thinking of going? And and the way his family loves being here. I mean, I get occasionally when I get picked up in my taxi, one of the lads that picks me up, and I think Neil will know who he is. His little boy's disabled, but attends the same school as Bruno's kids, one of Bruno's kids, and their mates, and they send a car for the dad and the little boy every other game if they want to go, and are treated in a box and given their food and all this sort of thing. And that's not the actions of a family that's looking to go anywhere other than being Newcastle. So it just doesn't ring true to me. That's the first bit. The second bit's the money. Absolutely spot on, Neil. Who's got 100 million up front? I mean, it just doesn't happen. That's why when our director put 37 million down for one share, all the others, Liverpool's, the Manchester Uniteds, and even Manchester City's were saying, "Oh, that can't be right." Well, it is bloody right, and we've done it, and we'll probably do it again before too long, just to upset you all. So no, it's a story that's a non-story for me, to be brutally honest, and. I also think the club are being very, very right to do it now, before we get into the hurly-burly of the window, and it kind of kills it off, because nobody could come up with, not even Manchester City are going to come up with that sort of money up front. So non-story for me, Steve, but little bit of political manoeuvring, I would say, by Newcastle United for a change, and that's refreshing in many ways, because normally we're at the tail end of things like that. At Newcastle, we're chasing everybody else. Well, this time we're at the front, and I'm delighted with that, and behaving like a big club for a change, instead of begging people to take players off. We know how to keep this one and go forward. Yes, I want him to be here to build on him and to be part of big things that's going to happen. But if he doesn't want to be here, I don't want him either. So, but a non-story for me, Steve. Honestly, very clever politics with the club.
Okay, Paul Charlton, I'll give that a shout out. Just a quick reminder for any ex-Forces people, Newcastle United Football Club's Armed Forces Supporters Club are launching tomorrow, and they're having a get-together 11 a.m. at Shearer's Bar. Good luck with that, Paul. Sounds fantastic, and one which we'd be happy to support on this channel as well, for everything the Armed Forces do for us. Steve, the Bruno story, as Mitch rightly points out, we've been talking about it on here for months, it seems, and just all we've had today really is clarification from Eddie Howe that it does exist, and it adds fuel to the fire really, and so it gives the journalists, I guess, something to talk about now for the next couple of months.
Yeah, I call Newcastle United a hotbed of soccer. It's a hotbed of rumour as well, isn't it? And at least Eddie's come out now and said something that sort of confirms everything that's been mooted in social media by normal supporters, by reporters. I mean, I think there's a line being drawn for now, to be perfectly honest. I'll be very disappointed. In fact, I'll be extremely disappointed if Bruno did leave. And the very fact that Newcastle perhaps are using them as a pawn in something, again, would disappoint me. But the guy only signed a contract in October of 2023 for 5 years. So that doesn't tell you that we've got a player who's arguing for a move purely for contractual reasons or for financial reasons. And he was bought for £35 million, let's face it. So suddenly having a clause in a new contract that he only recently signed that is only live for a month is extremely strange. That's what baffles me. What nobody's asked me is this every season? Are we going to have this May to June 2025, 2026 and 2027? The clever bit, as the guys have said, is the fact that it's money up front. And I think other than PSG, who are losing Mbappe, other than that club, I don't think there's another club in the world that could stump up 100 million in cash. That's probably my only fear. And at the same time, if Bruno was going to leave, I'd want him to leave for the go overseas. I don't want him to leave to be in the Premier League. I don't want to be having to face him twice a season. I don't want to see him in a Liverpool shirt or a Man United shirt or a Man City shirt or a Chelsea shirt. I want to see him in a black and white shirt when I watch Match of the Day, when I'm at the ground, I don't want to see him in any other colour shirt. And if I have to see him in a different colour shirt, it's going to be the only thing that would appease me would be if it was a shirt from another European club, a Bayern Munich, a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, or a PSG. And I think more than likely, PSG is the only club that could stump up 100 million in cash. How they would manage it and what sort of shenanigans would go on for them to get it is another matter. But I suppose, let's face it, that's the clever part of the contract. Darren Neal started all of this conversation when he spoke in January about having a price and all that, and trying to put realistic thoughts into people's minds. And all of a sudden, we've all become Championship manager experts, even those who have sort of never played Championship manager in their life. We're all now geared up to, what we think we could do with 100 million, who we would sell, who we can buy, who we'll bring in, all that type of thing. And it's just perpetual now, isn't it, in football, the way that things are spinning out. I suppose other clubs, we've never experienced it before because it's very rarely that we've had a player that has been in demand. I mean, we didn't have it when John Joe Shelby was at the club and people were scrambling around to buy him. So, it's all totally new to us. And I'm taking the mick there by the way. But it's just I suppose it is something, as Mitch said, something we've got to live with and we've got to learn from. And we've got to get used to, but it's a side of the game that I don't particularly like. I don't enjoy, and it's something that there will always be an undercurrent. There's always going to be now that feeling that one of our top stars is going to leave, and the unknown part. And maybe this is where I'm coming from. The unknown part being, and who are we going to get to replace him? And maybe that's because of 14 years of Mike Ashley that I see Jeff Hendrick coming in or somebody like of his ilk, when we're losing top players and that type of thing. So it's a fear factor, isn't it, that gets me going. But yeah, you could say it's a smart move because of the 1 month window. But as I say, please, let's hope it's not something we're going to have to go through every single time, every single end of season, and then we're going to at the end of the season, and we're all going to go, "Oh, Bruno's up for grabs for 100 million. I wonder who's going to come in for him." Thank God it's now June the 30th. That's gone. Brilliant. That type of thing. So, yeah, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that Bruno's still in a black and white shirt come August, Steve.
Keith, this is something, when you were last on the show, we were talking about this clause going in. It was rumoured. It's a confirmation now, I think, from our perspective that we all expected to be given at some point. But I mean, what's your take on this?
I don't think it's doing anything than what you guys haven't been saying for a long time. But the clause was there. We knew it was there. Right? There's 5 reasons it won't happen. And the first reason is what you lot's done as a football fan base. Newcastle fans have given his family a base where he's been able to settle. And there's a lot of players. I mean, look at the come to at Chelsea. They come away here with a massive reputation, and they land in a different club, and they just don't hit it off. They don't do it. They don't settle. And when a player travels from Brazil and ends up in France, and then he comes to somewhere that he calls his home, he brings his kids up, it's a massive thing to get your family to accept a region and accept the people. But it goes beyond that, because at Newcastle, what the Newcastle fans have done, they've made his father sort of hero status. Yeah. You should never underestimate that, because if somebody, I praised George this week because of who he is, and I just put a comment on him and saying, what I thought of him. And I just think it's nice when people are around you and close to you that you can find the words to say something nice. I'd no longer finished typing, and Neil said, "Thanks, Keith." And when people look after the parents, it means everything. And don't ever underestimate that if Neil looks up to his dad in the same way that Bruno looks at his dad, that you can't buy it. That's not for sale. That's something. It's a bond. It's built into you. It's what your dad's done for 80 years of leading you. And if you're 40-year-old and he's giving you 40 years of great leadership, clearly when a lad puts 39 on his shirt, he's doing it because it's his dad's taxi number. His dad comes to the northeast. He's walking around the bars, and he's hero worship. The people are putting on blogs that they've got a photograph with Bruno's dad. I'm going to ask you a question to the people, because it's a long time since I spoke to you, but do you think he's going to get that in Paris? Or do you think he's going to get in Munich? Or do you think he's going to get in Madrid? Because I think when Bruno's dad pulls up in Madrid and Paris, he'll be a nobody. He'll just be another man. Or he might even have that terrible phrase, he's an old man, because it comes to us all. So why let people rumour monger you and worry you? Because for me, I think what you have done to Bruno and his family, and what you've done to his kids, and what you've done to his wife and everything else, that you've made them one of you, I think that is going to go for a lot more credibility, and it's going to be a lot more nous in that. And like say Neil and George, if you look at that closeness, and then you spin that and you look at Bruno and his dad, it's nearly hero worship from Bruno. So you say, right, Dad, I'm sorry for everything you've had at Newcastle, but we're going to move to Paris. And sorry for kids that you've been born a Geordie, but you're now going to eat frog's legs and and I just don't see it happen. So that's the first thing. I think you've already cemented that. But the second reason I would say is, would he buy a house for 4 million? If you're in the thoughts, no matter how big your agent is, if somebody's talking to you about a property, you do two things. You either stay or you get a property that will quickly rent to somebody else. And if you put £4 million into freehold in Newcastle, you can't let that for renting money. It goes beyond that. When you start to let properties, if you go beyond 2 million, you're going to struggle to get that back in rent. At 4 million, I think it's a non-runner. So I think he's bought that house to stay. Third reason, and I think it's equally as big as the other two, is Joe Linton. I don't think Bruno would not have had been instrumental in getting Joe Linton to re-sign. And I think there'll be undertakings there that you sign and I'll sign, and you sign and I'll stay. So I'm sitting watching all this as a bit of a sideshow. I don't get on now to talk. I'm busy working, but I still have the same brain that's still doing somersaults every time I see these things, and ask myself, where do people get these stories from? And most of it's the press, most of it's to sell clicks. The fourth reason I'd say is Isak. And the reason I say that is because I think Isak's as big a player as Bruno. Like, Bruno is our Peter Beardsley. Like, he's that impactful during the game. When Beardsley came on a pitch, I just saw mesmerising world talent, but I always had hope that he would do something special. And Bruno's is, he's still got a long way to go to become a Beardsley, in the sense that the years Beardsley was here, what he did and what he achieved. But when Beardsley performed, Newcastle performed, and that's what Bruno's starting to do. We were awful during the week, but I thought Bruno was still working to try and create things in a midfield that looked dead. But when you've got Isak on there, and people are talking about him going for 70 million, why don't you just give 63? I just laugh. Honestly, I belly laugh. It's like watching these great dogs. I just think to myself, what they're going to bring on next? And to think that they're going to bring Isak in and get 7 million profit on him, I think Isak's number will be massive if people come in for him. I think it'll be 120, 130 million. But I think Isak's as good as anyone in the Premiership in a forward position. And if they let Bruno go, they send a massive message to him. And then the other thing they send a message to is anybody who wants to come again, anybody they're going to go for in the summer. If you let Bruno go, you say to everybody else, this is a stepping stone. So as far as the club's concerned, they won't want it to happen. And then the last thing it is, and it does mean something to me, is I haven't seen a player over the last maybe 5 years kiss the badge as much as Bruno. I think Newcastle means an awful lot to him. I think Bruno genuinely loves this place. And I think when he comes and kisses the badge, he would have got sent off, or he'd have got another button the last time he scored, because he went to the crowd, he was wanting to jump in. But he stopped because he knew he'd get the button if he did. But that man comes to the fans every time, and he's sending a message to everybody. And I think it's his way of saying, I'm going nowhere. So for all here, I would just say I think there's a lot of horse shit spoken. I think there's a lot of people that don't like Newcastle, don't like what we do, would like to do it. And I just would say relax. Wait till June gets out the way. Real Madrid's one of the two buys that could probably afford them. They've got a very, very strong midfield. And I just think that Bruno is ours, that he will be at the end of June. And I think that there's just a lot of talk. I think things will calm down then. And I think we'll start thinking who we're going to bring in. If the anchoring deal happens, which is being debated and thrown around, you might say Newcastle spend and bring other players in to keep them. And I think when Newcastle bring two more top players in to go alongside of the Isaacs and the Brunos, I think then they won't want to leave. I don't think when you look at the clubs in the Premiership, there's a lot of ordinary players out there. Take Man City out of it. I mean, Man United's got a lot of ordinary players, a lot of big signings, but very, very ordinary players, very poor players. So I don't think Bruno would want to leave to go to them places. I think he'd be too frightened of what's happening to Newcastle. And then above all else, I think he loves the players. I
think Paul Dummett wakes up every morning and kisses the badge and has done for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But that's probably a different story.
I'd say Steve Rich should put the dogs on now to shoot you up for saying stupid things like that.
Well, actually, you've read me mind. Let's get the elephant out of the room. I've had a few sent in. Here we go. First off, that one, another one. I think there's a couple more. Best of breed, Steve, and this one from Albert. Gray's Club still going strong. Sure spotted hasty in there, he says.
Quality, mate. Go on,
slightly different. Rowan Atkinson and Steve Hasty.
I missed anything.
We've had this one from German Tour. Any ideas who was this? Not as many dogs as you thought, Steve, but there has been a few, mate. There has been a few. There you go. And that was the laugh that everybody's been waiting for.
A note for Keturnia, that.
No, would. I'm not sure why I got sent this, but I mean, it's the same person. I'm not sure whether you realise that, but yeah, that's probably the worst lookalike you've had because it's the same person.
It's the closest.
It's the closest, yeah. Jimmy Moore, thanks for this one. The man from KFC
Jimmy.
And the man from KFC. Thank you, Jimmy. I hope you're well, pal. And another one of Jimmy's, he's gone into a KFC kind of zone, hasn't he, with this one? 50 years ago, this man introduced the world to 11 herbs and spices that changed fast food forever. Rod Stewart and the man from KFC.
That's brilliant,
so, very good. Lookalikes, another one from Tom Dixon, Garnacho and cauliflower. Very good. And this one never grows old. Thank you, Jonathan. Very good. Very, very good. Thank you for that. Alan McKenzie says Gordon Hill, the Birmingham Mayor, and Andy Street, the Wealdstone Raider, are never in the same room. Pretty good, that, Alan. Very good, mate. And yeah, I'd never get sick of seeing Ben White looking absolutely delighted scoring for Chelsea versus Chelsea. Thank you, Ian, for that one. This one doesn't grow old either. Thanks, Gary. Roland Ratton, a Ford steering wheel. That's clever. And another one, Adele and Tim Healy. And Rafa Benitez, working as a steward in Milan. Just on the left there. Thank you, Mark. And the Goonies reunion, bottom right, lads. Joe Biden. Another one from Tom Dixon. This one, Joseph and Michael Carrick. It's all right. It's not bad, Tom. I think you'd had a couple of beers when you worked that one out. And Coutinho and Peter Andre. Again, not a winner this week, mate. Not a winner. This one was good from Peter. He says, hi, Mitch and Benidorm. I saw this. Is George working abroad? George, anyone who looks at your age, George, with a set of headphones on is fair game.
Absolutely.
I got sent this one again as well. Veggie Cray.
Oh,
Oh,
brilliant.
That one was brilliant, wasn't it? That was during lockdown, I think. It was a guy who looks like Ronnie Cray walking around Tesco's in London. And Mick Hucknall.
wow.
Ollie
Not bad.
Drake.
Ollie Drake, of course, yeah. Like Mick Hucknall. Top 2 this week. Inspector Gadget from behind. Thanks, Ian.
The dog.
And I love this one. Monty Magic, thank you. A dog. So we're finishing with a dog. We started with the dogs and Rude Hullet. The dog's actually got dreadlocks. I think that's great. Fantastic, Monty. Thank you for that. That's your lookalikes this week. Thanks for the dogs. We got the laugh we wanted. There'll be more of them next week. All right, we'll start with you, Keith, on this one. Dan Ashworth, the situation rumbles on. Another big talking point with Newcastle United this week, and it's, you know, he's now going to take us to arbitration. I mean, I'm really pleased Newcastle have stood their ground on this, but again, lots of comments. What do you think of the Ashworth situation? Says Morris. What's the latest on the Ashworth taking Newcastle arbitration in the bid to resolve the move? Asks Tom Dixon. So yeah, what's your thoughts on this one, Keith?
My thoughts is that there must be a process somewhere to do with Premier League which allows you to go to arbitration.
There is, Keith.
Right.
I'll explain when I get my bit. I'll let you guys chat.
I imagine both sides are going to have to agree to the process. But when the first question a judge, George will be the one for this, is first question a judge would ask you is, you have that contract which you now say is totally unfair, why did you sign it? That's your first question, because something made you do that deal. And it's amazing when people want to get out of deals, want to get out of contracts. It's amazing how they all of a sudden become unfair. And it's amazing that the people who signed them or agreed them or sometimes even drafted them, at the end always quite articulate in why that was totally unfair at the time. And the question always comes back, so why did you sign it? And the reason people sign it is because they wanted the terms that contract gave them when they joined. And they get to the point where they start to prove themselves and they become the person they were supposed to be recruited on. And then they decide they can get more money elsewhere. And when you're talking about more money, it could be that people get offered shares in something, or people get offered a slice of the action that they haven't got. And I guess at Man United, he wants to go with his pal Brailsford. So I don't think at the time there was a likelihood that Ratcliffe was going to take over Man United when he first came. And I don't think he thought that he was going to get that deal. And the deal comes along. He must have thought that Man United were prepared to pay the ransom note. Newcastle stand firm, and now he stands there and thinks, well, Ratcliffe isn't going to pay it. He's not going to pay the money, so I'll have to break out of it. So I would imagine Man United's paying the money. I would imagine it's going to cost you the neck end of £500,000 to get a top sports lawyer to be able to fight that case over several weeks. But I think Man United, I think that's a fraction of they've offered £2 million on reputedly 20. So if they're going to pay another £500,000, it's neither here nor there to just get him out. Personally, it would have to be quite a poor contract created by Newcastle and signed by Newcastle back in the time when he came to release him. So it'd be highly surprising if he does win. I would think he doesn't. But what often happens in these cases is the discussion leads forward to a stalemate, and then discussions take place and they try and get somewhere between 2 and 20 million and come away with a deal. But from what I'm seeing off Catweasel, the new buyer of Man United, I'm not thinking that he's in the mood to go and spend millions on Dan Ashworth. So I'm not optimistic that he'll do anything other than just delay matters.
Okay, Steve, this is another long-running story. For me, just reading what people's thoughts are in the chat, lots of people just happy that we've just stretched this out a little bit. And here in Ratcliffe last weekend at the London Marathon, moaning on about and other things that he hasn't been able to get over the line in his short tenure to boot has been great as well.
Yeah, if this was a footballer and another club would come in for him, they'd have to make an offer. And then the owner of the player would have to decide whether they accepted or rejected the bid. And if not, then you could say that the player's been tapped up. And you begin to look at it from a purely footballing perspective like that, and you think, right, okay, so Ashworth signs a contract, signs a very good contract at Newcastle. Newcastle went out and bought him from Brighton, and the value on him, and the value is based on what they think he's worth in the business sense. And obviously, just like a footballer on the pitch, but also his value in terms of the contract that he signed. And then someone wants to come along. What do? Do they buy him out his contract? They have to pay a transfer fee. Man United don't want to pay the transfer fee, so now they're trying to wriggle out. Newcastle have put him on gardening leave. You can look at it in that football analogy sort of perspective, and you say, well, okay, Man United, you obviously tapped this player up. You tapped this representative of ours up. If you want them, pay the money. And as Keith says, eventually everything comes down to negotiation and comes down to, when the legals get in. And Mark put up a thing there about George Michael in a musical sense and not being able to wriggle out of a contract. And perhaps that Dan Ashworth needs to look at it from that perspective and say, oh God, have I made a complete hash of this here? It probably will get resolved, but it's just, I think what it does for supporters, it leaves again this idea of big six, top six, big club coming along and trying to bully and presume that everybody wants to go there and they can just do whatever they like and they can force the hand of everybody. And what Newcastle have done is said, no, stump up the money. Let's stick by the rules. Let's stick by what principles here. If you want them, you pay for them. And Ashworth is now the pawn in the whole situation, the pawn of his making, by the way. So I've got no concerns at all about the situation Dan Ashworth is in, not being able to work, being on gardening leave, etc., etc. He's still getting paid as per his contract by Newcastle United, I'm sure. And Man United have got to stump up the money. That's the way I look at it. It's as I say, it's one of those things that big club coming along and just thinks they can bully people. So let's see whether if there is this arbitration, and Mitch will explain what we do. But let's see exactly where it's going to lead us and lead Dan Ashworth and lead Man United. But I think Newcastle United are on the search for somebody that they'll consider to be better. They're certainly going around scouting themselves, looking for a big name, someone who can bring a little bit more kudos to the club. And that person's gonna be welcomed with open arms when that announcement's made. And it's going to be very interesting to see who they actually go for, because it's an important role in the club. A sporting director has an awful lot of say in the direction that the football club takes, in terms of the style of football, the whole business acumen of the club, from a sporting perspective. And you just have to listen to some of the conversations and some of the articles that have been written about some of the sporting directors that are currently out there, and see how much and how importance is placed on their role and exactly what their role is. And it can be a different role in every club. Everyone, it's not just it goes under the name of sporting director, but for some clubs, and especially European clubs, that person has immense power on what you see on the pitch on a weekly basis and on the club going forward. So it is an important thing for Newcastle to get his replacement right. And I'm sure that's what all the work in the background that they're doing is. And I think when they do get someone, it's going to have to coincide with whatever decisions made on Ashworth's future when he leaves, whether it's under arbitration or whether the gardening leave or whatever. But at the moment, all sides at limbo, and everything will go quiet again, except for certain people in the press, mainly Sky TV, who are desperate for Newcastle to be seen to be having the thumb pressed down on them by the top six.
Mitch, thoughts on this? It's an interesting situation that's developing.
It is. I think you've got to look at two ways. Firstly, what kind of contract does Dan Ashworth have? It's apparently called a front-loaded multi-phase contract, and they're intended for people in positions like his, where they've got a history of leaving positions, going on to garden leave after a certain period and haven't been had compensation paid for them before. My understanding is the clauses in the contract are it's 20 million before the end of the season. Over the summer, it drops to 18 million. And then over the next 3 years, it's drops of 6 million every 6 months. So it gives you an idea where the club are at with the contract. And that's clear. Now, I made a tweet about arbitration this afternoon, saying that usually when it comes to arbitration, everybody has to agree to it. So we could turn around and go, so do you. Well, apparently, as pointed out by Paul Stothard, who's actually a sports lawyer, and he spent time here in Dubai and back in the UK. And I should have remembered to reach out to Paul, to be honest with you, because you know what my contact book's like sometimes. He says in the footballing world, FIFA, FA, Premier League have all got rules making it mandatory that if there's any dispute like this in football-related contracts, they go to arbitration very quickly. So you can actually trigger the arbitration unilaterally. It was challenged by Paul Stretford, if you remember him, the agent, saying that on the basis of that he had a human right to go to court instead of the arbitration. And the English courts kicked it out on the basis that basically said you're participating in their competition, therefore you've got to play by their rules. So it's clear that arbitration will take place. And apparently you've got to look at Rule K of the FA rule book and Section X of the Premier League handbook if you want to look at where those rules are. So that's in place. Now, looking at the arbitration itself, though, now we understand why Man United are coming in so low. They want to put as big a difference between what they've actually got to pay versus what they want to pay in the hope that the arbitration lands somewhere in the middle. But like Everton's points deductions. Have you been nice? Or we'll take a couple of million off for that. Did you give up all buns and biscuits with a coffee when I'm coming and saw you? Okay, there's another million off for that. This is also Man United skewing the media again. Getting their media machine running to paint a picture that we're the bad guys, they're the good guys. They want to take this guy on. He wants to come and work for them. It's a terrible amount of money that they're asking for him when they know fine well what the money is. It also shows Jim Ratcliffe as being in control, which we all know he is not. The Glazers make the financial decisions at the end of the day still, whether Man United fans want to believe that or not. They haven't got rid of the Glazers. In fact, the Glazers have strengthened their hold because they still have veto over certain decisions, and yet they're not the ones being shouted at now. The green and yellow scarves have disappeared and gone back behind the emergency glass to be smashed at a later date when people were what's really going on. And you've got Man United fans all around the world saying, oh, we're going to show these Geordies what a small-time club they are. No, we're showing you what small-time thinking you are. And that you've got the skintest billionaire in the world running your club. Yeah. The same day, what story's flying under the radar from Man United today, because we're all talking about Ashworth? The fact that Ineos have made cuts to all the usual benefits that Man United staff are going to get for the FA Cup final. Yeah. That's how tight they are. So frankly, they can all kiss my budgie smugglers.
George's face. That's his nearly come his head. Like.
This is now a public announcement. I'd like to apologise on behalf of Mitch's budgie smugglers.
Budgies everywhere.
Yes.
Dave Pato wasn't the only comeback today.
And all the dogs have been back.
George, apart from that, Yeah, I was going to say, apart from the eclipse we've just seen there, what's your views on Dan Ashworth?
Well, I can't say what my views on Dan Ashworth were because I get your channel switched off. Let's get to the arbitration. Keith hit the nail on the head. I mean, I haven't been in arbitration in football, but I have been in arbitration with the marine things. The first thing they will have to agree is who the arbitrator is. Now, I've got a stick and fancy they might get a shock because some of the best arbitrators are high court judges, and they're very, very sharp indeed. So that's the first thing. And Keith's right. The judge will say, well, there's your contract. What did you sign it for if it's that bad? And I think Newcastle have played it quite crafty because with the contract he's got now, the judge will look at what his last contract was and say, well, hold on. Why did you leave that one the way you did? Is this your, what in legal terms, is this your propensity? Is it your propensity that you do this? Every time you get fed up or every time you see a carrot dangling, and the judge will
carrot dangling. Did you have to use that?
It was a canny carrot, mate.
Anyway, so there's that in it. The other thing I think is that Ashworth. I hope Ashworth's people have thought about what he's done. As it stands at the moment, arbitration is a civil matter and has no other sanction. But once the arbitrator makes a decision, it becomes a matter of the court. And once it becomes a matter of the court, if he breaks that contract, he could be staring criminal sanctions. So it's a risky business. It is a risky business. I think it's a no lose situation for Newcastle United, and a no win situation for Manchester United. The other thing is that Ratcliffe. I know people that work for Ratcliffe on the America's Cup team, and I know what they've had to sign for him, and it makes what Ashworth signed look like Walt Disney stuff. Really does. So I think the man's got a cheek. But we know he's got a cheek. You know, he stands at the end of the London Marathon as though butter wouldn't melt in his mouth when he's screwing down everybody else that gets near him. So you know, and us because he allegedly pays no tax. Well, allegedly, God, we know fine bloody well he doesn't pay any tax. And resides and has a residence in Switzerland to cement it. So yeah, it's a mess, but it's a mess of Manchester United's making, which is wonderful as far as we're concerned. And I don't think Dan Ashworth's going to get as much out of this as he thinks, or Manchester United for that matter. So roll on. You know, it also could roll on quite a long time. He may be better off just sitting waiting. You know, the whole thing might roll on and roll on. So it could depend on who the arbitrator is, I must say. But going into arbitrations, not always as easy as you think.
I think the other thing that might affect us, which I don't know the answer to, is can we appoint somebody while he's on gardening leave? And I'm not sure we can. So I think it actually suits us to get it over and done with at a certain point in time soon.
It does.
There's another point, George, that the arbitration, if at the end of the day the contract's the contract, if the contract's written well, which you can't imagine Newcastle lawyers wouldn't have written it well, doesn't matter who the arbitrator is, he can't change law, and he can't make that contract say something it doesn't say. So I'm not as worried about who that is, but I always remember my nana saying, if you can't afford the food, son, don't touch the menus. And I think it's so right here. Man United just tire kicking, and they just think that they come and take anybody's players, anybody's staff, and somebody needs to stand up and I'm pleased it's Newcastle.
Yeah, well, we've got a customer service announcement from Julie. If you've been affected by anything on the show, please contact producehaveright.co.uk. He's going to have to wash all them socks. That's all I'm saying. Blue
I hope, hey, I see Ian on the bottom there, on the bottom strap there. I hope he hasn't upset my Emily with that.
I'm not seeing Ian. We don't need to add Ian into this mix tonight. Thanks for that.
Well, he was on the bottom there.
Aye, we don't want to add him into the mix tonight. Blue Rhythm Boy says, views on the Gordon interview with Gary Neville. Anyone worried he'll be off if we don't start winning trophies soon? Mitch, I don't know whether you've had time to see it, but I watched it. It was brilliant.
Watched it through the week. I have to say, what an impressive young man he comes across as. He's come across as a far more rounded individual. Complex, driven, wants to succeed, will succeed. For me, the fact that Gary Neville had the nous during the interview, because it was supposed to be a quickfire 20 questions, and he only got to number 6 when they started talking about the meditation and mindfulness. And then that took over, and he allowed it to take over because it surprised him as well. And I thought, for all Gary Neville sort of belittles himself sometimes and says, "Oh, I can't present, I can't do that." No, but what you can do is interview, and you know when to let somebody keep talking. And he did that very, very well. And I don't think on the back of that interview, I noticed something with Isaac over the last few weeks, and I didn't wonder whether it's something he does, particularly when if you look at him when he's waiting to take a penalty, you can see he's running something through his mind, and then before the penalty's taken, he does a little almost like a tiny little fist bump. And I think he's visualising where he's going to put the ball and visualising scoring and how he's going to react. And I think it is something that is, like Gordon said, you talk about meditation and mindfulness, and you get this image of being all zen in a darkened room with crossed legs and your hands in a certain position, etc. But it's so much more than that, and something that everybody should be applying, in my opinion, day to day. It's something that helps in a world when it's funny to cover something Keith and I were talking about off air before we come on. In a world where everybody's concerned about mental health and mental well-being, mindfulness and meditation is a very important part of helping people deal with and progress through things and achieve the best version of themselves, if you will. And I think what a positive image that gives to anybody coming into sport about how you want to do it. You know, apparently he runs through the whole 90 minutes in his head the day before the game, how he visualises what he wants to do and who he's playing against and how he would like to see the game going. And fascinating interview that fleshes out the young man who was demonised by his own people when he left. And he was honest about why he left. He didn't see him achieving what he wanted to achieve at that club, in the state that club is in. And if you look at where that club is now and what it's going through, you can understand why if he was in the middle of that. So what I also loved about the interview, when he was given the choice about scoring a goal to win a cup for Newcastle or scoring the winner in the Euros, he immediately went, "Oh, well, I want to win a cup at Newcastle because the team that wins a cup there next will be held as legends in the game. And that's where I want to be when we win a cup." You think, bloody hell. And there's another voice in the dressing room. We talk about having leaders in different ways all over the pitch. We've seen glimpses of it in some of the stuff he's done with the foundation this season. In the run-up to the haptic shirts, when he read the letter from the young lads who they then brought in with him and Bruno, you could see he really was quite touched and quite emotional by it. Even Bruno was as well. And we've got a young man who is growing exponentially on and off the pitch. The sky's the limit for him, and I think that interview showed exactly why. And like I say, fair play to Gary Neville for just letting it go, not stopping him, not pulling it back, but letting him expand as much as he wanted on it. I thought it was natural. It was absolutely eye-opening, and what a credit to the club Anthony Gordon is.
George, have you seen the interview?
Yes, yes.
What did you think of it?
Well, it's tremendous. I mean, Neil's put it in a nutshell. It's so bright and so clever. You're looking at a young man who's, I think, able to achieve anything he wants to do if he puts his mind to it, and that's rare, particularly in sportsmen. And Neil's right to compare Isaac, because I watch Isaac when he takes penalties, but watch Isaac when he's interviewed as well. It's interesting that who's Isaac's big mentor in Sweden? Ibrahimovic, one of the greatest centre forwards ever. I've now realised that that's no surprise, because he's obviously been coached and urged to do the things that he did. I mean, Ibrahimovic never missed a bloody penalty either, did he? I mean, they're just great. So if all of that's coming into our dressing room, as Neil said, wow. And even Dan Burn this week, when he was interviewed about Isaac, and having a laugh about him learning Geordie and all that sort of thing. Even Dan Burn interviewed very well. So we've got not just a talented group of players, we've got a group of thinkers. That's got to be good for Newcastle United. And when some of the big thinkers are the young ones like Gordon, gosh, what a future we could have if we nurture that and find a way of taking that forward in the others, and letting them loose with some of the teenagers in the under 18s and lower down, and getting them to work together. Because up to now we've not had anything like that. We've had some terrible examples of what not to do with young people, and we don't seem to have been capable of getting out of that. I think there's a brilliant opportunity to use all of this to take the club forward for the next 10, 20 years. And Gordon, it shattered me. I mean, when you see go back to when he was Everton, and in the corner of the Gallagher corner, when he had the spat with Trippier and others, they were nearly coming to fisticuffs. You thought to yourself, what a nasty little bugger he is. And I often say he's dangerous on the pitch because he's like a nasty little wasp. He won't let anything go. But now I know why. Because he's gone through all that in his head the day before. If it gets to this is what I'm going to do. And if it gets to that, that's what I'm going to do. No, it's just wonderful. And more power to the lad's elbow. I love that. And spread it is what I would say. The club should bottle it and harness it and spread it around in big measure, because that augurs well for Newcastle United, having somebody like that. And Neil's absolutely right. The answer, he didn't even hesitate when asked about winning cups and medals, and it was Newcastle United. That's where I want to do it. Well, you cannot buy that. Cannot buy it. So, yeah, great, Steve. Great interview.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just refreshing, Steve, to hear one of our players, and I'll home in on what Mitch said as well, when he goes, that question, do you want to score a winner for England, score the winner for Newcastle? He said, I'd score the winner for Newcastle, but he also said, we will win something. And Gary Neville said, will you win something with Newcastle? Do you really believe that? Oh, yeah. Fully focused on winning something for Newcastle. That's what you want to hear, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so refreshing to hear as well. It didn't come over as sort of cliched in any way, or just sort of said for the occasion. The only parts of the interview I've seen have been the little snippets on social media. I haven't seen the full interview yet. But what I can compare it to is the snippet that was on social media, the interview with Cole Palmer. Talk about chalk and cheese. Talk about a young man in Anthony Gordon who has the world at his feet, but in such a wonderfully mature way. And then you've got Cole Palmer, who again, a wonderful footballer with the world at his feet, who comes over as though he doesn't even know how to cook a meal or put the washing machine on and stuff like that, and admits it in an interview, and you're thinking, dear me, two totally opposites, and there's only about 15 months between them in age as well, and it just shows you how you've got someone who's grounded, focused, but has now set himself up for a career and is thinking so far ahead that he's looking, as you say, at that meditation, that mindfulness, absolutely getting everything right in his head as well as on the football pitch. And then you've got Cole Palmer, who is obviously a totally different individual. Excuse me, cool as a cucumber when it comes to taking penalties, but I think with a club like Chelsea, has to be very, very careful that lad's head isn't going to explode at some point in time, because there is an edge to him which is totally different to the edge that we have in and I think one's managed and controlled, and the other one is an edge that somebody comes over as so arrogant that it becomes dangerous, and from a personality point of view could really affect a Cole Palmer going forward, as opposed to an Anthony Gordon. I know which one I'd rather have, put it that way, in terms of what we're seeing and how they're maturing. But yeah, I mean, we all want Newcastle to do well, and I think yes, there are Newcastle fans who follow the national squad as well, and you know, are so beefed up. But I think vast majority of Newcastle fans and fans in general for any club, it's club first, country second, and we're now hearing that. You know, yes, we all get behind England wins a tournament on, and it's so important from a national point of view. But the bread and butter football is Newcastle United, the Premier League, and winning trophies that way. That's why we'll have season tickets in Newcastle United. That's why we'll go to St James's Park. That's why I've supported the football club all my lives. And that's why Mitch is as he is, because the way George is, and George is like he is because of his father and his uncle. It's just built into us, isn't it? That it's Newcastle United first. Everything else is a bolt on, whether you're a supporter or a footballer. And to hear a non-Geordie, a Scouser, a Liverpoolian come out with Anthony Gordon and say that about our club makes you double down on your own football club.
Keith, your thoughts on the Anthony Gordon interview?
I was quite taken aback. I mean, I remember when he signed, and the biggest compliment I could give him is I used to hate it when we played against them. You know, he was the kind of player that you wanted to like trip up or slap, because you just always thought he was taking liberties all the time. And then when he comes and plays for you, and I think the first person that said to me, and he is the first person I ever heard say, God, he's going to be a great player, was Johnny Allen, Q-Tech Johnny. He said to me, he says, wow, what a player that's going to be. That's going to be something special. And it was the first person that like stepped away from, is he going to be any good? And a lot of people admitted this week that a lot of us questioned how good Gordon was, whether he was worth the 40 million, all the rest of it. And for me, jury was always out. Let him put a black and white shirt on, see what he does, see what he contributes. But Christ, when I watched that interview this week, I was blown away by how focused he was. I thought, you're talking like a 32-year-old son. You're talking a language where you're telling people how you are going to do it. And he apparently set targets from a very young age to play for England. And that was one of the things he said when he got his cap, that he was, you know, it's something he set out to do. But when he refers to Newcastle now, he sort of says, you Geordies. He knows he's not a Geordie, but he talks about it and he shakes his head and laughs. And he's sort of, I think he's giggling at how passionate they are. And I think when a lad leaves a vitriolic environment of his own people in Liverpool, and you saw those sad videos when he was run out of his own club, and he was only still a kid. He was still, I mean, he's still only young now, but he was a real kid then. He was playing in a team that was struggling. But I think that determination always lay there. And I think that's why he had the balls, not just to stay at Everton and fight on and do his bit. He got the move that he wanted. He said, when Newcastle come in, I was never, ever going to turn it down. And I think Anthony Gordon, we're not talking about him at the minute, saying, is he going to go? But I think Anthony Gordon's worth big money. You know, we're going for 40 million. you wouldn't take 80 million from him now. I wouldn't, because seriously, he's the one player in our football team that when he goes and decides to do something, it takes a hell of a lot of stopping. He's got wicked pace. He's got pace, probably top 3 in the Premiership. He has an ability to throw people off. He's got a nastiness in him, but he's also got an intelligence. And that video came across. He sat with Gary Neville, and Mitch summed up perfectly what he said. Gary Neville had the ability to draw him and to bring out his inner personality. And I think it's credit to Gary Neville that you actually saw the real who Anthony Gordon is. I think that was all Gary Neville's doing, because Mitch said he'd give him a stage, and he just said, I don't know, I'm nothing. You just keep talking. So, and I think Gary Neville's blown away, but his determination, his single-mindedness was frightening for a kid that age. I've never seen. It's a long time since I've seen a young kid, and come on, when's the last time you saw a 21-year-old talk with that assurity and that commitment? I thought he was outstanding. He was so driven that he will do it at Newcastle, but I'm not fearful of him leaving. You know, I just look at him and I think he loves the badge, he loves the club, he's found the right place, and I don't think anything will happen until Newcastle were much, much bigger, or a daft bid come in for him after we've won something, and Newcastle found what they determined was a better player, but he'd be going somewhere to get better than him. He comes over as a great kid. He comes over as the kind of kid, if it was your son, you'd be proud, you'd blow your chest out and say, you did well today, son. I'm absolutely proud of you. I looked upon him and thought, Christ, I'm pleased he's one of us. I looked upon him and thought, how good is our dressing room when you've got people like that? Yeah. We've talked about a lot of people, but Anthony Gordon epitomised it. I look at players now, I always say, you've got to have special players, like players with a bit more off, and players that can stand out in the league. And when you've got 6, I think you're well on the way to a good side. And I think this window, we need to put 2 more in and take us to 8. But when I look at them, I look at Tino Livramento. I think the lad is capable of going all the way. I think Isaac's special. I think Botman's special. I think Bruno is. I think Joe Linton's a backbone and a warrior. And I think Anthony Gordon's a 6th player. I think we've got 6 really, really strong players. Now, I dream about Miley, and I dream about Anderson. You know, I have a lot of hope for Anderson that his physique and his determination and his application that have become good. But, you know, when I watched the game the other night, I thought him and Longstaff were missing, and I thought Bruno was left on his own. And I thought that's where the young part come in. But these players will grow, these players will come and come again. But I think the 6 we've talked about there, I think Newcastle's well on the way to building a proper team. And I just hope that we do get a change in rules next week so that we can buy more players, buy 2 or 3 proper players, so we get up to 8 or 9 top players in the side. And don't forget, you've got Tonali to come back.
Yeah.
Steve, on top of all we're saying about Gordon and Isaac and others, my heart bleeds when I think of some of the talent we've had at St James's Park, and has been totally destroyed because they haven't been guided in the right way. And some of the names are familiar. There's Suddick, Foggin, Nile Ranger. You know, you can't put those people in aside the same room as Anthony Gordon. But it's tragic. With the right guidance, we might have been able to. And I find that absolutely awful. I know some kids around similar when even I was involved who could easily have guided in the right direction, would have left the last pint alone and did the extra training, but no guidance, none whatsoever.
Okay, we are halfway through the show, just over halfway through the show. We'll have a quick break with the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk, telephone 01768 210 102, or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to United Group Travel. There are no strangers in our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Thanks to Media Arts for the technical side of things. And you can also find us as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. You can subscribe to the channel by hitting the subscribe button underneath this video. Hit the all notifications bell so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to your social media. If you want to join the channel, then click join for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become a member, for a one-off £25 payment, email john@nufcmatters.com or go to membership at the website nufcmatters.com. If you've got a smartphone, hold your camera over the QR code and it'll take you straight there. We also help the food bank on this channel. Go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk to the matchday bucket and you can leave a virtual donation today. And don't forget, end of season due, 20th of July, Irish Centre. And we've got Super Matt and Gibbo, George, and the Long Sands on stage. Tickets are £10 from newcastlelegends.com and nufcmatters.com. And we are raising money for Dementia Matters. Should be a cracking afternoon stroke evening. Get yourself along to that. Get your tickets today. And just want to say a big thank you as well to Rob Maltman. Rob has basically designed all the new flyers that you see. Big thanks to him. He's a graphic designer. If you want to visit Maltman Marketing on Instagram to see his previous work and contact Rob Maltman, big thank you for doing that for me over the course of the last couple of weeks. Okay, as always, plenty to get through on the show, and I think it's time for a few tweets. Lots of these, and it's with a heavy heart, lads. I've got to report a sad post.
Oh dear me.
And this is a burning question as well. Why did Bungle wear PJs in bed but walked around naked all day? Never thought of that. But yeah, good question. Thank you for sending us that in. Soda Pop Kid, I like it. Nah. Everyone's commenting on my post, says the dog.
Yeah.
I suppose that Bungle one is the one for Ask George, isn't it?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that again on Wednesday. Kids these days are out of control. Back in my day, kids would get together and would teach each other how to play musical instruments like the bassoon. I never did that, mate. I never did that. I've got to be perfectly honest. And I just swapped our bed for a trampoline. My wife nearly hit the roof. That's more up my street, mate. Thank you. And thanks, Stephen Kennedy. He seems to have a thing against Wearside. He says, I'm not saying Wearside's rough, but he has Pennywell in 1904 and 2024. Honestly, he spends all day doing these kind of things. Gary Lillick went through his entire career without receiving a booking. Paul replied, so did his father. Lovely fella, but not a very good DJ. I did like that. And this really does sum up modern day, doesn't it? He had over 2,000 Facebook friends. I was expecting a bigger turnout.
Spot on.
It is spot on, exactly. And something else, it's weird this, because somebody sent me this, somebody not connected with somebody who I spoke about, and said it was Ray, who goes to the same gym as me, and he goes, you know what? He says, imagine if the Titanic sunk now. He says, everybody'd have their mobile phones out. And he's right. And somebody sent us this today. But it's a fact. It is a fact. Thanks for those who sent us this. Quite a few people been to the Indians this week, the Indian restaurant, and ordered plain rice.
Yeah.
And look at this, Indians, lads. When someone crashed into the local Indian restaurant, the locals had a field day dishing out puns. No jokes, please, but that could have been someone's nan. All right, pal. I don't want to get into an argy-bargy with you. These jokes are good. I'm biting my peel out reading them. Why must everyone take the mickey out of others' misfortunes? I know, it's a pitter. Stop making a big doll of this. So very good. Those kind of Facebook groups are superb, by the way. A couple of Star Wars ones have been sent in. A couple of Star Trek. I've had to pick the best ones. Breaking: Tesla announces new Cyberbus. And one of these for a while. I love shoplifting kitchen utensils. You could get into trouble for that. That's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah, mate.
Right.
I told you they don't get any better than like, but people love sending us them for whatever reason. Not a very good cruise, but an awesome buffet. It takes a while to sink in. And cutting the grass is back in fashion now. I'm sexy and I'm it, lads.
Oh, yeah, look at this.
Christ.
And Soda Pop Kids being on fire this week. Every day, thousands of innocent plants are killed by vegetarians. Help end the violence. Did you get Stephen Kennedy round to carve them out? You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy, says Ben Kenobi, looking at Westminster.
Aye.
And when Lord Nelson died, he was 5 feet tall, lads. His statue in London is 15 feet tall. That's a ratio of 3 to 1. One for Mitch. True love in Thailand. And one for Stu Penman. 9 p.m. Okay, only a few drinks, nothing too crazy. Definitely Stu, that is it. And Soda Pop Kid again. Want to go for that rabbit? No, I'm giving up fast food, says the owl. The wife said, if you're bored, why don't you make a bird table? Now she's kicking off because I've put her in 5th place.
Dear me.
A guy in my office is shaking his protein shake, and this woman poked her head around the corner and said, do I hear margaritas? No, Janet, it's 10 a.m. And, little boy tells his nursery teacher he's found a dead cat. How did you know it was dead? Asked the teacher. Because I urinated in its ear and it didn't move, says the boy. You did what? Shrieks the teacher. Explained the boy. I leaned over and went, psst, and it didn't move. Get it? Pretty good. And another one. Oh my, you haven't touched and caressed me like that in years. Why did you stop? I found the TV remote. And for sale, lads, for sale. Selling his old camouflage gear, serious offers, only no time wasters.
Brilliant.
And somebody sent me this in 2020 and it showed up on my timeline today. Are you and God the same person? I've never seen you and him in the same room, that's all. Thanks, Matty. No idea why you sent us that in 2020, but I really appreciate it. And why it showed up this week, I've got no idea. This is a great shop, by the way. 100% natural ice cream. Fanny in Paris. Been sent that a couple of times. And this is original. We're in the iron and steel business. I do the ironing and he does
the stealing.
Allegedly. And thanks to Hugh Hefner, an entire generation learned to read magazines with one hand. When you try to put the cereal back in the box, lads. And I had to look twice at this photo. Rather apparent.
That's legs.
It's 2 legs, yeah, but especially with Mitch doing what he did earlier on. Peter Crouch playing golf, still one of the funniest things ever. It's got me in bits every time.
Does he not know you can buy bigger putters?
No, obviously not.
No.
And Gary, he says, how cute's this? A newborn pothole? Again, quite relevant to the roads these days. Referee news: with the introduction of female referees for the first time in the Premier League, players have been warned that they may get booked for fouls that they committed years ago that they had completely forgotten about. And once I went to an RNLI party, they know how to push the boat out.
Oh.
And breaking news: guy shot with a starting pistol. Police think it's race related.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh,
And the missus still isn't speaking to me, but at least she's made his breakfast. And bloody Tory, said Stephen, why are you digging up me brother? The DWP said he's still fit to work as a scarecrow. And the flights are back in from the first planes in from Rwanda. And saw this and thought it was treat of the week contender, says Mick. Richie Sunak or Sophia Karma. It's like changing your shirt when you've shut your trousers. And I want this guy to run for parliament. He's laid back, looks intelligent, and appears to have what most politicians are lacking. I did like that one. And perhaps best to keep your sliding door closed, mate. Brunswick clothes and socks. Big kahuras. Yeah, great stuff. And I can't decide what to order. How about the duck? I'll have the lasagna, says the duck.
Hey.
Last couple. Some good ones this week, to be honest. Honey, say something to me that will make me both happy and sad at the same time. You have a bigger dick than your brother. And please can I have a picture of some people's stairs, says Bethan. Thanks to Simone for replying with that one. And the first time you got drunk, what did you drink? It's a question, this from Stephen. I would say it was probably whiskey, Stephen, for me. Mitch?
Southern Comfort, and it's the reason I cannot even stand the smell of it to this day.
George?
Well, I've got to reveal, as a teetotaler, I have been drunk. Ooh. I was sent to Portsmouth by the university because my boss was retiring to finish negotiating a contract with the Navy. And at the station I went to, they treated it like a ship, even though it's a land-based station. And I went in the wardroom for my lunch, and of course I hardly sat down. I hardly got in the door when this young sailor came up with a glass of pink gin before my lunch. Now I'm ready to sign £500,000 worth of contract for the university. Do I say to him, no, I don't drink? Or do I keep it and say no? So I kept it and said no. And slowly sipped where I could, even though I don't drink. But of course, eventually it got down the glass. And every time it got down the glass, this lad came and topped it up out of the jug of pink gin. They were good enough to get a car to take us back to my hotel at 5 o'clock.
Brilliant.
And I was due to ring Marjorie at 6, and I rung her 2 o'clock the next afternoon.
Yeah. Steve Hasty?
I don't know about the first drink, but the last one was obviously the 8 gallons of Malverno that you and Mr. Penman poured down my throat the last time we were out.
Yeah. Okay, Malverno. That's a bad one for me as well these days. Keith?
16-year-old Pernod Black. It's beautiful for a fortnight. And I still can't. Like Neil says, I can't go near it now. I can't stand the smell of it.
I can't stand the smell of whiskey, so that's
Pernod Black.
It's the same as me. We don't have any of this, lads. Magical penis wine, apparently available in China. And top 2 this week was this one. I'm not sure what's worse, the toes or the idea. Brilliant. Good that. And the winner this week, I do love one of these. I'm in Asda. That is a good Stella, big man. Thank you, everybody. Jimmy Wilson, you've been on fire this week as well. Thank you for sending yours in. That's your tweet for the week. So much talk.
Because in case it's still there.
People actually troll through Facebook looking for people like that to send messages to. It's hilarious. We've got at least enough time to talk about the meeting at the Premier League next week. A lot of people want to ask about that. What's our understanding of anchoring Mitch? I'm sceptical of any proposals relating to PSR. We become one of the big players. Could this become detrimental to our potential financial dominance? A couple of other people asked earlier on as well about it as well. What do we think about the proposed anchoring rule, which could come in on Monday? There was also somebody asking about the fact that they're talking about stopping clubs going on pre-season after season tours. So of course Newcastle heading to Australia at the end of the season. I mean, anything and every way that can stop. I mean, Eddie Howe was asked about that today, and he just shrugged his shoulders. What can he ask? You know, but Mark Byers, I'll ask us as well. With the news that they're unhappy about our revenue building trip to Oz, do you think the club will be compiling a dossier behind the scenes of all these things which are clearly aimed at us? So lots of questions all around the same thing, Mitch.
It all starts to get a bit odd now when you've got 4 or 5 examples where we've got to do something, then a new rules come in that stops that. Once would be okay, twice even maybe's, yeah. We've now got a set of rules that are generally referred to as the Newcastle Amendments. Whether that's their real name or not, that's what every bugger calls them. And now this, we arrange a post-season tour game to help with revenue and income. Spurs have done the same. And yet all of a sudden, it's a problem. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Yes, we should have a dossier. We should have reams of bits of paper that show we have evidence that whatever they're looking at and they're trying to stifle us in every which way they can. The new PSR proposes any changes in PSR, they've got to be so careful of, because if it takes it too far divergent from UEFA's, that'll screw every team that plays in Europe. Every team. And is that really what the Big Six want? Or do the Big Six want an excuse to talk about Super League again? Let's see the whites of everybody's eyes on this one. Anchoring is an interesting idea, tied in with a salary cap and a cap on spending based around what the lowest income in the league is. But I think once you edge towards that, you've got a lot of teams who could then lodge an anti-competitive case. I'm quite sure of that, because it's anathema to the game. We're not in America. We're not working with salary. It's interesting saying this is the second day of the NFL draft, and everything coming together, and you're seeing the NFL teams vying to pick the best college players. And a lot of them are having to juggle salary caps and how much of the cap of the cut if they give this player away or they swap this player, and then what have we got to play with to bring this one in. Some teams seem to have made amazing moves, and some teams seem to have made very poor moves. You can totally see why Todd Bowley decided he wanted to try and bend FFP by putting players over long contracts. But that showed somebody who understood how you could get around FFP, but didn't understand the DNA of football. Thought it would work like it does in America, where the club always holds the upper hand, and if they want a player out, they'll get the player out. Doesn't work like that here. Players, as we know firsthand, on big salaries are quite happy to sit tight and take their salary and they won't put a transfer request in because that forfeits bonuses, etc. So they'll just sit tight and take their wages. Henry Saviat, anyone? You know, and he still complains about his time at Newcastle bitterly. You didn't complain about the wages you were taking, did you? So, you know, that one cuts both ways. I can't see how, for all, a lot of clubs might be keen on this anchoring. I don't see how it fits with the UEFA vision of sustainability rules. I think it would take me too far divergent from that. And I think any team voting for that who have aspirations to play in Europe, or Turkey's again voting for Christmas. Bill's quite right. I think the Premier League are terrified of government regulation coming in. That's why we're seeing so many manoeuvres off the pitch and meetings with non-league teams. The FA, like we discussed last week, passing effectively control of the FA Cup over to the Premier League, shows who holds the power in football in England at the moment. But I think it's still a very fragile power. For me, that I think our owners are quite happy to sit back and let things unfold. Because I still think if we make any aggressive moves, there'll be a number of fingers ready to point in our direction to say, "See, told you, this is what would happen when Saudi came in, and now they're doing this, and now they're doing that." So I think they're playing a very dignified game of watching and waiting, and they'll make their move when it's right for them to make their move. I don't know the specifics and the ins and outs of the whole anchoring. I don't know if you've picked up one more than I have this week, Steve, because we haven't really chatted about it that much. But for me, my concern would be anything we do that takes us too divergent from UEFA effectively hurts any club with European ambition.
I know Keith has. Maybe let Keith go next, because Keith, we've had a chat about it early doors, and it's an interesting take, isn't it?
I think anchoring was first championed by Parish at Crystal Palace, and I think a year ago.
Sounds about right.
He was pushing it through, but you've got to remember, Crystal Palace has always been a club that's been able to. I don't know. They've always been the one who seemed to be closer to the Premier League, and they always seem to vote with, I guess, the cartel vote. So even though they weren't voting for themselves, they were one of them, let's say, turkeys that always went along with a cartel vote and voted for it. But when you look at anchoring, where does it put you? Because right now, someone just mentioned, Nick Neal just mentioned, anti-competitive. Any market that invites newcomers and people qualified to get in, where the ballpark or the playing field advantages and privileges some bodies because of the size is anti-competitive. Simple as that. So you've got to ask, and lots of people, it's good that I say this is thanks for being so kind, and thanks for all your comments for inviting us back on and asking us to come on. But loads of people have asked us online saying, why are Newcastle not taking action? Because it's all relevant to this. I mean, Newcastle are in a position where they're being colluded against, which is the anti-competitive term for where clubs try and hold them back, and it's illegal. And there's been these Newcastle rules that are out at the moment, and you can't get away from them. And people ask why Newcastle don't use the Saudi influence and the Saudi lawyers to go and crush the whole lot. And I think the answer is in the takeover. When the takeover went through, if you go back and remember, the biggest competition case, the CAT case that was ever heard in history, was where 33,000 people attended. And that was Newcastle United's case. There's never been a bigger public turnout in a competition case in history. And they represented a quarter of the world's countries were represented on that day. But the key is to go back and look who took the action. The action wasn't taken by Newcastle United Football Club. The action was taken by a company called St. James Park Holdings. And that was a company that traded legitimately and had skin in the game. And if Newcastle didn't get the takeover, they would lose out. So St. James Park Holdings could stand up on their own against the Premier League and against other football clubs and legitimately justify that if Newcastle United didn't get the takeover, they would be financially cut out of a bigger pot. When somebody can demonstrate, determine a loss, when somebody can prove a loss and say, well, I would lose out to this extent, they can then take a competition case. But the problem is all the football clubs join up as members, and part of their undertaking is that they will sort out their differences via arbitration. So you're not allowed to take out, your football club can't just go forward and march into a competition case. And if they could, or if there was the vehicles, Mike Ashley was lucky they had this company, if you could do that and the current position was challenged, it's an absolute no-brainer. I've got enough evidence in 4 different lawyers' offices that could prove, because evidence lasts for 7 years, you could prove that the football association, like let's say the EPL, and let's just say the cartel, let's not beat around the bush, you could prove that they have acted anti-competitively against Newcastle and others. And once you prove one point, you might lodge 50, but if you prove and succeed at one point, then you win your case in competition law. And it's illegal. So why are Newcastle not doing it? Possibly because they've signed an agreement for the takeover to say they won't take the competition action. That the takeover, if you like, suppressed any follow-up actions. That's my guess on it. But right now, when I look at anchoring, I'm probably a bigger fan of it than maybe Neil is. And it's not because we differ. It's because I think the doors for Newcastle catching up are closed off too much. I'd rather that something like anchoring came in on Monday and we caught up and then something else come in later. And the reason I say it is because when anchoring come in, it would base the monies on the lowest earning club. And in this case, it would be Sheffield United. How much do they earn? How much do they earn from football rights, TV rights, and the lot? And then everybody would have to abide by a multiple that figure. The rumour is that the figure sits around 150 million, that the figure would be 3 point something, and it would end up that you could spend 500 million on players, or that is, if you like, your new FSR/FFP rule. If that's the case, as explained by Kieran Maguire very eloquently in an email today, it seems that if that was the case, you then put a comparison to that and say, well, last season, only Man United and Man City got close to spending that figure. Chelsea went over and beyond it, which we all know, and that's still to be dealt with. But 500 million, put in perspective, Newcastle's side net costs 234 million. So if you could spend 500 million in the summer, you could buy 2 squads. But the main thing you could do is you could spend as much as Liverpool, or you could spend as much as Arsenal. And what it would do, it would mean that your threat of losing Isak to Arsenal is nullified. It would mean it would go. It would disappear overnight because you would have the same buying power as them. And that's what a fair market is. A fair market is where if Villa's owner wants to spend, then he should be allowed to. If Sheffield United don't because they can't, well, at least they can. That's the difference. At least you've got the opportunity. So for me, I would back it in the sense that it would get us a lot of catch-up. If it came off on Monday, which I extremely am certain it won't, I can't say get past. I'm told that Man City and Man United are 2 of the biggest opponents to it. But if it were to get past, you've got to remember a lot of the smaller clubs, the Burnleys, if Leeds and Leicester come up, which they look like they could do, they're immediately going to run an FFP problems. And then if you add the other teams to that, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, it goes on and on and on. We just can't spend. And we can't compete, we can't bridge the gap because we don't fit the cartel criteria. So for me, I would say if anchoring came in, Newcastle overnight would do a lot of catch-up. And I think to be able to spend in the region of 500 million would keep you Bruno, would keep you Isak, and it would let you go and buy 3 top players. And before long, you'd be challenging Liverpool and Man City and Man United, Arsenal a lot quicker than the current system. And I don't see the current system being legally challenged because I think they've divided and conquered all the members of the Premier League so that they don't get together and do it. But I think what's happened with Everton and Forest wrong. I think that stinks. I think that like DeMarco working for clubs now is positive, but I really do think that there's a big problem. Somebody just mentioned on screen about wages. You know what happened last time people tried to put a wages cap on. It's a dangerous area, but right now we operate and exist in a cartel market. That's what the Premier League is. It's a cartel where people are given privilege because of past achievements and they're given financial advantages over this. That is anti-competitive and ultimately is illegal. I think the rules of the Premier League membership prevents people from challenging. That's why we don't see the challenge everybody's asking for. Right now, Monday, pass anchoring, game on for Newcastle.
Okay, Steve, what's your thoughts?
Well, the first part of it was about the post-season tour, and I think it's interesting that came from the FA and not the EPL, because I think it's probably from an EPL directive, but I think it's the FA trying to say, by the way, lads, before the regulator comes in, we just do still have some clout in football, I think it's a little bit of a political game that's being played there. But coming so soon after the EPL and the FA shafted the EFL on what Mitch described earlier with the cup replays, I think it also shows how teams or groups like those can come together against and react against other authorities. So I think it's a dangerous precedent that the FA and the EPL are going down without consultation. And in terms of what Keith's just described there, it does sound a far better system. Obviously, the interesting parts will be, and Keith mentioned Sheffield United as being the lowest figure. You could turn around and go, well, that probably means that every season the figure would change, but I think it would probably be static because the Premier League know exactly what the team that finishes 20th in the league is going to get from a financial point at the start of the season because they've got the TV deals in place anyway. Yeah. So that's not a thing. And Keith also mentioned there something about the cartel and the way the cartel operates. And the other big cartel that operates, and Keith in very eloquently there regarding the way that the prize money and the way that incentives are thrown out, and the way that it prejudices other clubs, and that's UEFA. Wouldn't it be funny if we then, as an English football authority in the EPL, go down the line of this particular anchoring system? It then puts them up against UEFA in terms of the restrictions UEFA put in with their 70%. And then we go as the EPL and challenge UEFA for being part of a cartel and operating with restrictive practices. That would be the ultimate classic throwback, wouldn't it? You know, after all this, because it would impact on English clubs effectively playing in Europe and being restricted because they incentivize the prize money based on historic achievement, as Keith said. So this could be yet another legal challenge. It could open up another can of worms, couldn't it? But let's face it, it's the clubs at the top, and somebody put on the strap earlier. Man United have already whinged and said this is not part of it doesn't fit in with our plan at the moment. Well, what a shame, you know. Everybody else has had to suffer. So you know what? Let's face it. We know that things have got to change. We know that there needs to change. And they've got to break the spell that suddenly hovers over everybody else, the other 14, to the detriment, based on some sort of convoluted conversation that says we're protecting you. And I think other than this, the only other sensible thing I've come across recently was the one from Stewie, which said, put money in an escrow account, guarantee to cover the losses, guarantee an underwrite, and if there's something there that's underwriting the fact that if the club does suffer some sort of financial impediment, that there is somebody sitting there behind that covers it, that's probably the only other way that you can go ahead. So
you wouldn't get that, though, would you? Because if somebody, what Stewie's penman's idea is brilliant. It's saying if this really is about clubs going bust, then all you need to do is put money in escrow account and that's safeguarded, because it says, I'm going to spend 500 million, but I'm going to put $1 billion aside in case anything happens to be club. So it's logical, it works. Problem is, there's 19 people voting to say, well, Newcastle will just put 5 billion in the account and Newcastle will just become bigger. So when Mitch touched earlier about the Newcastle rules, that's what he's referring to, that people are making votes on the basis that they work against the richest company in the world. And what will happen is you wouldn't get Stu's logical, sensible plan through. Whereas the difference is the clever bit about anchoring is, and I'm not saying I don't think it'll go through, but the beauty about this is it's been championed by Crystal Palace for a smaller club, and after that it's going to be held by the smaller clubs. They're going to get a bigger say. So the smaller clubs are going to immediately turn around and say, well, this sounds better for us. You've got to remember, you've got to get 14 to vote, and I think you've got more. And Man City with 115 charges around their neck are saying they're not going to vote for it. That to me tells you that it's in favour of competition. Man City have got a 300 million head start on all the other clubs in the Premiership. 300 million head start on spending. That cannot be anything but anti-competitive. So that's why they won't vote. But if you said who'll vote against this on Monday, I'd say Man City, Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool. There's your first four. Possibly Tottenham. Don't think Chelsea will, because Chelsea's in the shit.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say, you're trying to get something that'll get 14 votes. I think this has got more chance than an escrow account, Steve.
I suppose what it other than an escrow, the other way is an insurance policy that you've got to guarantee. It's just an insurance policy that says if you reach this particular point, then the money will be covered. It's some sort of wraparound, isn't it? Some sort of protection.
It is, but the clever bit about this is it's been championed by a minnow in Crystal Palace, and it's been supported. There's apparently a lot of support. They suggest there's 10 clubs really keen on it, so you only need to get 4 more. So you know, if you get 14 clubs and they vote this, I tell you what, if you vote this in on Monday, Newcastle, and they run it for a season, Newcastle do the catch up they need to do. Newcastle just go buy a load of kids. You know, like they're looking at kids now. You go buy a load of minters kind of people, 7, 8, 9, 10 million kids. And pack your academy out, and then go and buy 3 or 4 top players, £100 million players. You're then at the level where the kids come through, and you've then, if you like, caught up.
Yeah. George, you and I have just been sitting back listening to the lads. What's your take on this?
Well, it's what my take is that why the hell can't we just play football?
I agree.
You know,
I agree.
Yes, I understand what Keith's saying and Neil and Steve are saying, and it matters. But do you think that in the 52,000 crowd at St James's tomorrow, there'll be more than 1,000 even give a bugger about it? All they want to do is turn up the match, see their team win, and have a good time. All I see is people with lots of money doing their bloody best to stop it. You know, they're doing everything they can to put a block in the way of Newcastle United going forward. And anti-competitive, you use all the words you like. It's anti-football for me. That's the important thing for me. And it's just tragic. It just is a nonsense that these fat cats can ruin the beautiful game by their games, their financial games, and their attempts to outbid each other, outrun each other, outcheat each other. It's just a mess, an absolute mess. And the quicker there's some sort of explosion, earthquake in the region of the Premier League, the better, so that they'll start to think about football again instead of all these maneuverings to stop us and others doing what they want to do. Let's go back to the days of Stan Seymour. When Stan Seymour was stroke manager chairman, if the club had a profit, the day after the profit was made, he went out and bought players. He used to, if he got 60 grand profit in a season, he'd go out and buy 15,000 pound players and spend it all. In 1948, he'd spent so much money. We had 40 professionals on the books, and nearly and half of them, well, 5 of them were centre forwards, and all England players: Stubbins, Bentley, Wayman, one other, and up on the rails come little Jackie Milburn. Well, that's the kind of football I want to see. I'm sick of the bloody rubbish this lot's doing.
But George, if you were looking at this thing now, if the 2 clubs that come up automatic are Leicester and Leeds, they're already knackered on PSR.
Absolutely.
So the club, they're going to join a league, which they've been trying the knackers off for the last 5 years to get back into. And you sit there and say, well, they've only been down 2 years, but you've seen how hard it's got the Championship. So you see how close Ipswich is. How long has Ipswich been down? But let's suppose it's Leeds and Leicester. Their PSR's knackered now, as is Palace, Villa's, and as is ours is on the verge as well. Tell me this, George. What's Notts Forest done wrong? Because all they've done is they've come up. The grounds have been brilliant. The fans have been brilliant. It's been an absolute city coming together, waking up. And the Notts Forest home games has been some of the best support in the league. And it's been outstanding to watch Notts Forest at home on a Wednesday night with the songs. And all they've tried to do, George, is buy players. And they're not allowed to because they're not as big as the people they're competing with. How's that right?
Yeah, it cannot be. And not only that, the people they're bidding with are up to their neck in bloody debt, £1 billion in debt.
Two of them's got £1 billion debt, but they're allowed to spend more because they're bigger and they've won more trophies. So that means already, like we're not going to beat about the bush here. Leicester and Leeds are coming up to go back down. Because they can't spend it. That to me is corrupt. It stinks. It's horseshit.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I promise you. And imagine until it changes, it will never ever improve.
And imagine if you're a loyal Leeds fan, Nottingham fan, Everton fan, whatever fan, and your club's being treated like that. What does that do for your sense of football?
Smashes your pride.
Absolutely. And that's where the new thinking's got to come in. I'm not saying that that fans should get everything, but fans should be able to enjoy their football again. And how on earth fans of Leeds and Leicester could enjoy it, knowing that they're coming up to go back down again, like yo-yo clubs? It's just pathetic. Absolutely
they can't not go back down. I mean, seriously, if Leicester and Leeds come up, they've got Championship players. They've lost all the people who kept them going. So they're going to come up with a noose round the neck, saying you can't spend because of what you did last time. They're going to go back down. They're going to struggle. And you know yourself, one of Leeds' best players was Phillips. And at that level, he was a good player. I spoke to a coach from Manchester City and he said his second touch is a tackle. He says he's got no control. And he said, you don't want him in Newcastle. He went to West Ham, it didn't work out. And if he's one of their best players, think of how much they've got to spend. We try to buy players to compete at a European level. But Forest had something like 17 contracts that either ended or were loan deals. They had no choice. They had to spend. And the guy says, I'll put my own money down.
Exactly.
But they weren't allowed to.
And that's
they've been fined twice, George. But the reality is they've been fined twice and they're still fourth or bottom. Well, if they're fourth or bottom, how much were they supposed to spend to stay up? Because they're legally not allowed to. Because of the cartel. And people talk to me and say, well, you keep going on about the cartel. God, you know, it's like honestly, it's like the whole
the other thing is the other thing is the Greek owner gets panned for doing this and doing that to the other. I wish all owners would wear their heart on their sleeve like he does and put his money where his own money where his mouth is. And he can't, you know, he can't. I would if I was a supporter of Everton and places like that, I'd be knocking on the doors of the Premier League to find out who voted for the cartel's ideas, who took us down that street that led to nowhere, put us in a cul-de-sac. It's just ridiculous for football fans.
George, you know the guy who owns Notts Forest? He's like a guy with an electrical company wanting to recruit electricians. Yeah. He's got an electrical company, he's got loads of contracts coming in. I've got 10 contracts coming in, I need 10 more Sparkies. So he's trying to get some more Sparkies in. No, you're not allowed to. Yeah. You're not allowed to do them contracts. Them contracts are ours because we're bigger than you. Honestly, and people go on about what is anti-competition. It is just making things equal and making new incomers being allowed to have a pop and have a crack. And the Forest guy says, well, I'll put my money in. Yeah. No, you're not allowed to. So he'll go down, he'll get fined twice, and he'll go down. Everton will survive, it looks like. Leicester will come up, Leeds will come up, and they'll go back down. Sheffield Wednesday, they come up, what they do? Went back down.
Yeah.
What an absolute crock of shit this whole
Yeah.
Premier League is.
And the very fact that we can sit here and predict that says how corrupt it is.
Because George, we geniuses. I mean, we are professors. I mean, me and you regularly sit together on University Challenge. All we are is football fans that want to shout for a brand, for a colour. Whether it's green and yellow, if you're a Man United fan, or it's black and white if you're a Newcastle fan. All you want to do is shout for your colours and back up what you're doing. Notts Forest people this year have been a credit to their city. They've been absolutely brilliant. Their home games have been outstanding, and they're not allowed to compete.
Exactly.
So when you're not allowed to compete, it's called, because it's anti-competitive. People go on. I put a post on the week and I wrote cartel. Some dipstick honestly turned out and says, "You keep putting cartel." I thought, well, maybe you can't spell it. But the reason you put it on is to get the word out there, because one day the penny's going to drop. But I feel that the problem, George, is that football clubs, Newcastle United Football Club. You remember, Amanda got rid of all them companies the other week. They were all non-trading companies, but the main trading company, I believe, can't take Newcastle, can't take the Premier League to court. And to me, the first club that takes the Premier League to court on a competition basis will wipe the floor with them.
Yeah.
And if they're not going to wipe the floor, I hope they ring us, because I'll give them a bag of evidence which will take anybody down.
David Cook mentions the news, which I'm sure we'll end up covering at some point this week, about Man City. He says it's going to happen very soon. We'll believe that when we see it, mate. Okay, I want to cram this in before I get the lads' predictions. As always, as I say, we do have plenty to get through, and we're gonna finish off with the match prediction, but we'll finish as well with. The day I met, where we asked you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from the club, past or present, and this is a great photo. Thank you, Simon Yeaman, for this. He says, here's one for you. It's a photo of a photo, so hopefully it works. He says, me and Alan Shearer, October the 17th, 1998. I was invited through one of his sponsors to a box at St James's Park for the Derby County game. We won 2-1. Dabby's and Stephen Glass scored the goals. Alan came in after the match for a meet and greet. I was the only one of the guests who was a Toon fan. He comes in, pretty much ignores us straight away, and goes to put the teletext straight on. I knew instantly exactly what he was looking for, and told him the page number as I'd read the story in the morning. It was when him and Glenn Hoddle got into an after a Euro qualifier, and he supposedly told him, maybe it's you. After that, we chatted, and I got a shirt signed and this photo. My 11-year-olds just realised it's Alan Shearer in the photo. It's been on the display in the living room since he was born. Best wishes, Simon from San Diego.
Fantastic story as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for that, Simon. Sorry it was a week later than expected, but it gave us the chance to share it and play this music. Okay, Mitch, time to get the dice out. It's not in your budgie smugglers, is it?
No, it's ready here.
Right, good stuff. Let's see what the dice says, and then give us your prediction for Newcastle Sheffield United tomorrow.
The dice says a 2-1 win.
And what about you?
Well, they need to give us something back after they didn't turn up in midweek. To watch a midfield bossed by bloody Will Hughes, who's some sort of strange ginger albino who pops up in shit teams that picks up bloody points against us. He was part of the worst ever Derby team that took 4 points off it. He was part of a Watford team relegated twice that I think took 9 points off it. And, it just shows how poor we were through the week. And I think what order performance. What have Sheffield United got to play for? Pride. That's the only thing that makes them difficult. I would love to see we run a result against them that we had down at their place. But I think back to winning ways and a clean sheet and 3-0.
3-0, I'm going for 3-1. George, what about you?
5-0.
Wow. No messing around from Ward
No.
George today.
No.
Steve?
God, I'm going to have some bruises at 5 o'clock tomorrow. Those punches in the arm after every goal.
That'll just be because of the people not taking throw-ins properly.
Oh, yeah, we'll have that as well. Yeah, I agree with what Mitch said there. Absolutely. But I'm going to go for 2-0, Steve.
2-0. Okay, and Keith?
6-1.
Wow, 6-1. Okay, no messing around from the panel tonight.
No.
Great show. Lots of positive comments. Thank you. People saying, is Keith coming back? Yeah, Keith will come back. He's very busy working, and we're just going to keep in touch, Keith, on when you can. You said you'll pop back on. I mean, it's one of those things. You've got to put the food on the table before you come and do the show. But even if we get you on once a month, I think it would be good for you as well as us, because you like to get a rant off your chest.
I just want to thank everybody for what you did all the way back. There's things back there I couldn't say, but maybe now is the time to say is we did the takeover in October, and I think by February I got cancer, and I never announced it to anybody. And I went to the celebration with you lads at the Irish Centre on the October the 7th. You have to take over, and I was a week. I didn't tell any of you at the time, but I was a week out of my operation in London. So I had a cancer operation a week earlier, and Mrs. went berserk. But I took her up the Irish Centre, and we had a night beyond the drink, and that was the first drink I had. I mean, I don't know how I got through the night, but Mr. Hasty goes up on the stage and to interviewers, and he apparently only said 2 words, and apparently I never should have. But it's been a journey, you know what I mean? And for that to happen straight after takeover, I thought just my luck. But got through it, and now I'm finding that like comfort is working and doing all the things I used to do. But when you've had something like that, you sort of look and it makes you put things in perspective. And I used to love being on the show, and I used to love the people, you people out there, and it frustrates us because I know we're living in a cartel, and it frustrates us that I lived 6 years of my working life fighting a cartel, and I travelled the world with lawyers, and I've made friendships with people like Nick DeMarco and Robert O'Donoghue as a result of this, and now I just wish I could do more, but I've done my stint for Newcastle, and I don't even get a ticket every week. I've got to fight for a ticket, so I've got to beg tickets now, and I just all I want to do is just go and watch Newcastle. And as George said, all I want to do is I'm not bothered about before, after anything. It's looking and thinking Anthony Gordon could run past anybody, and it's about an even playing field, George, like you talking about.
Yeah.
It's about that. But I do love like what you lot's given me, and I've never probably had a proper chance to turn around to you and say thanks for what you did for us, because it went a long, long way, and it was a really hard time doing the takeover and taking the shit off idiots, trolls. But to me, I learned the way to get rid of them like quite quickly, and now it's the show that I've always been attached to. I'm proud of what I did with you. So the crowd of people you work with are outstanding, and in Newcastle, the club itself, they're doing everything they can to work in a dirty market, and I just hope a court case comes out at some stage to prove what's been going on. But I don't think it's as easy to do as what maybe people think. If we've got a miracle like Monday and we've got Anchoring to come in where Newcastle could play some catch up, then happy days. But I will be around. The lads know how to get hold of us, and I will come back. And I just want to say thanks for all the messages you've given us, and the warmth tonight is incredible. Thank you.
Great stuff. I am good. Yeah, go on, George.
Just quick one. in my taxi hiring life. This morning I got a Blue Line cab, and he was from Gateshead. He'd been sent over here because they didn't have enough cars. And he assures me the Gateshead office just about shut down to watch this programme. So big shout out to Blue Line Gateshead.
Brilliant.
But the taxis are available. Most of the drivers have their pants on, unlike Mitch on this show. We're going to finish. We'll finish with Toonstato. Thanks everybody for watching. Over 550 watching live tonight. We'll never take it for granted, as always. Thanks very much. And great viewing figures last Friday, by the way. 4.6 thousand, I think, of you watching the Amigos last week. Amazing figures. Thanks for your support. Means a hell of a lot. Okay, we're playing out with Toonstato. See you in the morning, 10 o'clock with Ben Jacobs. Enjoy the game. Enjoy your weekend.
Cheers, everyone.
Ta-ra, lads. Ta-ra.
Hello everyone and greetings from Edinburgh. I'm on my way to Newcastle to see tomorrow's game live. Newcastle at home to Sheffield United after the defeat at Palace on Wednesday night. We have won 7 of the last 8 games against Sheffield United, losing only that one in January 21 when it was Sheffield United's first win of the season. When we won 8-0 against Sheffield Wednesday back in 1999, we won the other game 2-0. Which is still the highest amount of goals Newcastle has scored against opposition in a single season, 10. So if we score 3 tomorrow or more, it will be a new record for Newcastle. Newcastle has also scored in all their home games so far this season, 17, with 43 goals to date, which is still far away from the Premier League record at home, 54, back in 96-97. Sheffield United on their own have lost 16 of their last 18 games played on Saturday. And tomorrow the game is on a Saturday. Alexander Isak has scored in 6 consecutive home games that he has featured, and he's chasing Andy Cole, who has scored in 8. And of course the record is held by a certain Alan Shearer, who scored in 15 consecutive home games back in that same season that I mentioned, 1996-97. We are chasing Manchester United for Europe. Funnily enough, Newcastle has never finished above Manchester United in the Premier League, believe it or not. So it can happen for the first time. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Away the lads.